But when we met earlier on during the talk earlier this week, you said you got a background in working on games. So
yes, that's right.
So that you got into this structure of performance. Fairly slowly, and the clowning is something you've actually studied, because you realised that the clown persona was a useful one.
Yes.
In the situation you'd created for yourself.
Yes, that's right. I mean, for me, it was very much so. I've been making games for a good 25 years at this point. Programming them. I started when I was a teenager. I'm 38 now. I left university. I graduated in 2010. It was the early days of the iPhone and the iPad, and I really wanted to make a life for myself as a video game developer, doing it independently. So I started making iPhone and iPad games, and these kind of escalated. I like making multiplayer games where people share a screen and they're encouraged to get in each other's way and be a bit silly. And so I started working with bigger touchscreens, and then I started making games where people are running around rooms, hitting buttons on walls. And I was like, oh, what's bigger than a room with buttons on the walls? Well, how about an auditorium? And how about when you've got 100 people in a room together? What video games could you make where every single person in that room matters? They might not necessarily have a controller, but the physical presence of the body in that room, what difference could that make to the play experience? So I started making games where people are running around in an auditorium with a barcode scanner, and they have to climb over the other people in the audience or crawl under their feet. And now you might not have been given a role in the game, but you are now a human obstacle in the experience, and you as an individual get to decide, do you make it easier for the player by getting out of their way? Do you make it harder for them by getting into their way? And using the theatre as a space to create opportunities for that. So that became my very first stage show, called The Incredible Playable Show, and that was very fun. That was very successful. I took it out to a games festival in Los Angeles, and it took away the Jury Choice Award, which was really, really nice. It was still one of my proudest achievements. But I found that there was one thing where the show seemed to struggle, and that was, if I could make a connection with the audience early on, like in the first 5 minutes, if by the end of the first 5 minutes I felt like I had a friend in the audience, then the show would go really well. If I didn't, it would really struggle, because I would struggle to get the trust from the audience that said, okay, I am going to go up on stage, I'm going to take a barcode scanner off of this guy to play a video game that I've never played before, and it might be humiliating. It might show me to be really bad or incompetent in front of a whole room of people. And people were rightly scared of that. It was my job as host to build trust, and I didn't know how to do it. So a friend recommended I try clowning. So I signed up to do an introductory clown course with a teacher called Holly Stoppett in Bristol, who is absolutely wonderful. She uses mindfulness and it's very much about looking into your own emotions as a way into clowning. Absolutely fell in love with the whole thing, and I've been going to clown workshops with different teachers. I've been studying it, reading it, and also developing it in my own work, whether it's on the stage, whether that's in live streams, and just really digging into it. And it's just become an absolute passion of mine. It's clown is a beautiful form.
Yeah, I find this fascinating, because you've leapt into technology, a world which is apparently off to one side from the classic drama.
Right, yes.
But you've come back to craft skills in clowning, which is very traditional.
Yeah. I mean, I think play is the thing that connects them. The thing that, one of the things I found at my first clown workshop was that clowns think a lot like video game designers. A lot of the stuff that they have to deal with, a lot of the stuff about making that connection, making people feel welcome to play or understand what's going on or whatever it is. There are a lot of parallels between performing on stage as a clown and designing a game. The difference is, as a clown, you get to be in front of the people who are playing the show, in front of the audience, whereas with a game, the audience is probably playing it a year after you made it, miles across the world. So if they're not quite following, you can't adjust that game to make it suit them, and that's one of the great beauties of the stage, is you can make that adjustment on the fly. But even improv, improv is the same thing. I first went to the Bristol Improv Theatre to see a show about 11, 12 years ago. And I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. Got chatting to the performers afterwards and found they think like game designers. Everything they talk about game. In improv, game is a really important word. And it means when improv performers talk about game, they're talking about ideas like, if you're, as an improv performer, your role is not to be the funniest person on the stage. Your role is to set up your scene partner to be the funniest person on the stage. What are the things that I can do as a performer that help you as my fellow performer to really shine? And if we, if we perform like that, we will both end up being really funny. Stuff will emerge out of that. Yes, and is another part of game. You accept what your scene partner is giving you and you build on it. These are all parts of game, and what that is a system of mechanics where if we follow those rules, if we play along with those mechanics, then great magical moments, funny moments will emerge naturally as a result. And that's what video games are, when Donkey Kong, gorilla throws barrels, they bounce down a thing in different patterns, so you have to jump over them. That generates a sequence of things that you have to jump over, which are sometimes predictable, sometimes unpredictable, that becomes very fun to play. But no one sat down and choreographed each individual barrel, they came up with the system, and the system causes the player to generate a fun experience, and that's what's going on in improv. That's what's going on in clown.
Right.